Welcome back to this What If everybody, and I think this is the Ruby What If. I don't remember where we left off. I think Ruby and John is partnering now. Yes, Ruby and John is going to be partners. And yeah, let's get started. As Ruby and John, if I am correct, John, but I'm thinking now. Yeah, Ruby and John is going to be partners in this one. Oh no. Hold up, let me think about this quickly. I found a different way. Hold up. Even's better. Even's better. Never mind, we're going to stay with the same setup. So it's going to be uh, Ven, and, uh, gosh, Nova. There we go. Ven, and Nora. And then it will be Ruby, Yang, White, and Blake, two separate teams. Ruby and JMPR. Yes. We're going to keep it the same as canon because I have ideas for why I want them not to be on the same team. I mean, otherwise they would be basically perfect partners together, but so the reason why I'm separating the two, and you're going to see later into the videos. So let's begin. So I think we left off with John getting launched into the forest. I don't know if we are going to start in the forest, or if John was launched. But I'm going to start off where John gets launched. John is launched through the forest and he's flying the sky up. He's pissed at Osborne because, yeah, it just came so suddenly without a warning. As John focuses on his descent down to the forest floor, the forest and the trees are coming quite quickly, so he needs to think of some way to slow his fall. Thinking of something, he moves his scythe, which is not a gun by the way, which is a double gun, not a sniper rifle, as he waits. He hooks onto a tree branch and he goes right around it 2 times. Spins around the tree branch 2 times. However, we see Pyrrha coming in with a fire. She's at the moment falling and she's trying to find a way to slow herself. While obviously being a 4th grade world champion warrior every single year, she comes up with that idea easily and lands on the branch, which John is spinning on, or should I call him Arthur, which Arthur is spinning on. He went twice around, and then the third roundabout he stopped. As like, that worked. Ah, that worked. As he climbs up on the branch as he sees Pyrrha. Oh, hey there, I guess we're partners. As Pyrrha says, yeah, I guess we're partners. Pyrrha is looking at the child that she's partnered up with. She's not sad about it, she's just curious that she has such a young partner, or a person that is young on her team. As Pyrrha continues with John into the forest while communicating, John tells a bit about himself and Pyrrha tells a bit about herself. John doesn't recognize her, but from the pumpkin, peach, whatever porridge they eat, that Pyrrha was on a porridge box, and he only recognized her for that, and that was all. He didn't mention anything else because he doesn't know anything else about her. So yeah, they continue talking until they come across a cave. The cave is blank and empty, and there is nothing really inside it. Piva and John looks around as they think the artifacts are in there. Not seeing the sign that they can't read says something. As they walk in, John sees a glowing object. Thinking to be the object, he tries to reach for it. As soon as Pyrrha realizes what that is, it's too late. The object suddenly moves back, and when John tries to grab it before it disappears, claw nearly takes his head off. If it wasn't for Pyrrha pulling him back, he would have been headless. As Pyrrha and Jorn look up slowly, as they see the scorpion grim staring back at them. It roars as Pyrrha and Jorn get the idea of get the hell out of there. Jorn obviously has his sightings compacted mode because he doesn't need it now. Oh, that was a hiccup and a snort. What the heck? Jorn and Pyrrha are running through the forest with a Deathstalker chasing their tail. As Jorn pulls out his scythe, finally swapping it to gun mode. As he has double pistols in his hand, as he aims the barrel guns down at the basically thing that's following him and fires a few loads. They aren't gravity crystal shots, they're just normal bullets. Doesn't make a scratch on him. As he says, darn it, I wish I saved some of those gravity bullets, or even made me some, as Jorn is running throughout the forest with Pyrrha. As the Deathstalker swings his tail, Jorn has no choice but to jump. As when he jumps, the Deathstalker speeds up as Jorn lands on top of the Deathstalker's head. As Pyrrha is still running, very worried for a new companion which is younger than her. She wants to stop, but she knows if she stops, she's gonna get injured. So she continues running. However, back with Ruby. Ruby and Weiss are hanging off of a Deathstalker. Gosh, what is this? Yeah, is hanging off of a winged Grim. A very, very big Grim bird. As Ruby has her scythe hooked on as Weiss is just being carried. As the Grim lets go of her, but Weiss is still holding on to the Grim. As Ruby says, okay, jump, as she lets go. A few minutes later with Yang. Yang is busy talking with a new partner and looking at the objects that they had to bring until we see Nora and Nora and Nora and oh gosh, I don't say their names often. Nora and Ven. As we see Nora and Ven come bulldozing out with a bear Grim. As Yang says, did she really just ride that Grim? As Nora's like, yeah, it's broken. As Nora says, as Ren is trying to catch his breath, as Nora's like, Ren, look, as she picks up one of the chess pieces. I'm king of the castle, I'm queen of the castle, I'm queen of the castle, she states. Few minutes after, A few minutes after, John comes flying out of the clearing. Where's the scorpion, you say? Well, let's just say he got flung by the scorpion. As he lands in front of Yang, as Yang's like, oh, it's you. After a few minutes, Ruby comes landing on top of John. Bam! Ah! As John says, Ruby and John are roughly the same size, and John is just a little higher, slightly inches higher. As Ruby, yeah, slightly shorter. As Ruby lands on John, as she has her eyes closed, and she's like, oh. As Yang's like, okay, what's next? As Yang is getting irritated, okay, can we chill out just for a few seconds? Nora comes bulldozing outside with the grim hot on her tail as Weiss is screaming from above. Ruby! Why did you leave me? As Ruby says, I said jump. As Ruby's like, she'll be fine. Tells her sister that Weiss will be fine. Yang says, and she's falling. Ruby says, she'll be fine. Until Weiss realizes that she can use her gloves. But before she uses her gloves, she falls on John. Joan gets a second impact worth of pain. Ah, why does this hurt so much? As obviously Pira just got to them, as Yang says, great, now the gang's here, we can die together. As Ruby stands up and says, not if I have anything to say about it, preparing her scythe to charge the scorpion Grim. Before she can charge, Joan hears the speech from Ruby, as when she was about to run, yeah, Joan grabs Ruby's foot and says, wait, as Joan gets dragged along with Ruby in her semblance. All you see is a black and red mist getting basically charging towards the Grim. Obviously, John in this instant gets his footing back and starts running with Ruby while activating his semblance. As soon as the Grim attacked, before Ruby could slow down, John redirected his speed, her speed, and his speed, and they both split apart. This time, Ruby doesn't fall over or nearly get killed by the scorpion gun because of John being with her. John obviously activates his scythe and swings to the legs as Ruby does the same. They both damage one of the legs very badly, as the movement speed of this beast has slowed considerably. Considerably. It's slowed down very, very much. As Ruby and John basically look at each other and look back at the Grim. Well, that was intense. Obviously, the rest of the team move into action as they are not focusing, not all of them are focusing on the Scorpion. The only people that are focusing on the Scorpion is Yang and Nora, while Ren and Pira and Weiss is trying to deal with the Flying Grim. The bird screams as he sends a volley of hundreds of feathers down at the opponents. Ruby obviously being in the way, but before she could run, her coat gets stuck, as she can't move. Yang telling her sister to get out of the way, Ruby says she's trying. Obviously, John comes back into the rescue, basically using his semblance, yanking the feather out and grabbing Ruby while using his semblance to move fast. Obviously, they are moving directly into the way of the Deathstalker until they split up into two different colors. Ruby obviously having red but having a bit of black with her semblance, as John is black but having red within his semblance, as they both meet up at the end of the area, as they roll on the ground landing on each other. John looks back at the Grim, seeing that the Grim's behind them, and Yang has gotten attention. Obviously, John is on top of Ruby, only realizing now, and they both scream and get out. John or Arthur rubs his head in slight embarrassment and says, sorry about that, Ruby. As Ruby looks around looking at her sister didn't see anything. She's too busy focusing on the Grim. As she sighs, as she says, it's fine, John. As they continue into the fight, John asking Ruby if you can grab a few of the members and focus on the flying Grim. As Ruby's like, yeah, that's a good idea. As John grabs Pira and Nora with Ren and starts focusing on the Scorpion Grim. They start focusing on the Scorpion Grim with John moving in and out because John's semblance is similar to Ruby's. He moves within the basically combat melee range of the Scorpion, using the speed semblance he gained from his semblance to basically dodge all attacks and slice at parts where the Grim is weakest. Obviously, Pyrrha's being the tank and keeping the Grim distracted, Nora is doing heavy damage, and you can say Ren is just trying his best with long range. Obviously, John comes up with an idea as he tells Pyrrha to basically distract them long enough. He looks at Nora and says, Nora, need a boost. As basically John starts running at Nora, activating his semblant. Nora is like, hell yeah, as everyone gets the picture of what's about to occur, then getting ready and trying to weaken the Grim so their team can set up the attack. Before John's before John was launched, John says aim for the tail. As John does that, as Nora does that, aim for the tail. As when John is launched, the tail that was gonna strike Pierre, yes, gets intercepted by a scythe. Obviously, with the boost of Nora and his speed semblance activated, he got tremendous speed and cuts the thing off. He also moves his scythe slightly and shoots out a chain that comes within the long pipe of the scythe. He swings the thing up as Nora gets a lift from Pyrrha, using her shield as Nora gets launched in the air. Obviously the thing is in pain as it's walking backwards. Nora preparing her ultimate attack. Eat this, you scorpion thing, as she hits the hammer directly into the piece of the scorpion's basically stinger, which is glowing. As it gets sent straight down to the scorpion and impacts its skull, killing it instantly. Obviously, John's team has just finished this grim, but there's still another one left. As John sees the aftermath of the grim, seeing how Weiss and Ruby combine their attacks with Blake's string and launch Ruby so fast that she basically clips the bird into the mountain and then chops its head off. She has her scythe on her back while John is standing on top of the grim with the stinger in its skull. As John is standing on top of the stinger with his scythe out, he sees Ruby on top of the mountain, standing on top of the dead head of the bird. They both look at each other and smile, John getting a bit of a blush as well, watching how Ruby just took out a bird, yeah, with her scythe as well, and being his age and that adorable, yeah, he blushes at what he just saw. Ruby didn't see the ending attack of John's attack, but she does see the aftermath and brings a smile to her face. All her friends are strong, including John. The end of the end of the graduation exam for getting into Beacon finishes, and John, Pyrrha, Nora, and Ren are on one team, obviously being JNPR. Still the same team, and Ruby, obviously Ruby the team. Ne- Obviously next up they go to their rooms, and yeah, the rooms are quite bigger than the Team Rubies. Team Rubies needed a bit more space because they had more things. However, John's team did not have a lot of things, so they had a lot of space. The beds were side to side. Boys are going to be on one side and girls on the other side, with a desk separating the two sides. There's also a big table against the wall near the door with a few cupboards next to it, and next to that wall on the other side near the girls' side there is obviously a bathroom. Obviously the bathroom is there and it has everything that a bathroom would have, so nothing different there. The other side, by the boys' side, toilet side, so yeah, nothing different there either. Both John and Vin settles in and they have a little bit of chat. Think of it as a bro chat. basically talking about themselves and introducing themselves. Obviously, Noria's clinging onto Ren's neck as Ren is talking to his new leader. Ren's POV. Ren was honestly shocked when a child was named leader of his team. He didn't know how this would work because John is younger than him and he's his team leader. He's obviously skilled, very skilled, and his semblance is strong. It's almost like that girl's skills. As John thinks to Osborne, I wonder if Osborne is smiling at himself, thinking that he just named two children leaders of a hunter team that are probably 3 years older than them. Back at back at Osborne's office. Osborne was in his clock hour office doing paperwork as he suddenly sneezes. Someone is talking about me. As Osborne looks around. Glinda's POV. When Osborne named John and Ruby the youngest members of Beacon to enter the school, the team leaders of two teams, yeah, that sent her over the edge. She both questioned Osborne on his methods of granting members leadership. As Osborne says, they are both capable and strong, no matter how young they are. They are training to be hunters, so age doesn't really matter. I can see it in them both. They are both able to become good and great heroes. If they were both on the same team, however, I would rather make Ruby team leader than Joe. But because they are not, both of them have team leadership that might even surpass the other. Joan is obviously not shy as Ruby, but if Ruby can get over her shyness and awkwardness, she might be able to become the best leader Team Ruby has ever seen. No, the best leader Beacon has ever seen. Joan obviously is a bit shy, but still, he's stoic, heroic, and brave. He has good strategy and can come up with ideas to defeat the enemy on the spot. He doesn't need to speak much to the team that he has. Why? Because as he demonstrated, his team knew his idea before he even uttered a word to them. Both his team and Ruby's team trust their leaders, except for Weiss. Weiss is a bit of a problem, but she'll warm up to Ruby in no time. That's why I made Ruby team leader instead of Yang, Blake, or Weiss. And also because she's the only responsible person I trust there in Team Ruby. Glinda turns around, looks at Osborne and says, and what is that supposed to mean? Osborne puts his hands up to his mouth and says, it's simple, really. Weiss is an arrogant person. She doesn't have self-control, nor does she put anyone or nor does she put herself down to anyone's level. If Weiss was the leader, the Ruby team would be teared apart in an instant. Both Blake, Yang, and Ruby would not like her as a team leader. Why? Because she still has a high horse and thinks she's all high and mighty. Now, Yang, however, would make things just chaotic and worse. She's not a good team leader and can't come up with good ideas and strategies. She has a temper because of her semblance, and she thinks brute forcing her way through everything is the greater idea and plan. Yang would lead her team to death before she even started leading. Blake, however, she is unknown. She is unknown and she's hiding a big secret. And like most people know for leaders, they have to be completely honest with their team. If the leader is hiding something, it will tear the team apart. Since Blake is hiding that she's a faunus and part of the White Fang, well, used to be part of the White Fang, you can say that her team won't last another. Her team won't. With Blake in leadership, the Ruby team won't last a week. Ruby is the only viable option and the best option for Team Ruby. She's also a good strategist, just like John. And also, I think I think we might have a love relationship between two leaders. As Glinda looks at John with a narrow eye. A love relationship. You know that's not allowed on school grounds, right? I know. But I rather let this love story play out. It could work in our favor at the end of the day. We'll see. As Osborne thinks to himself, and also both Ruby and Joan's semblance are very similar. And there's more to it than what their semblance can do. I can tell. Ruby's semblance and Joan's semblances are similar, very, very, very similar. It's like they are semblance twins, but not really. And also there are more abilities that their semblance are hiding under the surface. They just need to realize it. John is busy with his weapon, the scythe that he has, as his scythe is more than twice as heavier than Ruby's scythe. He has felt Ruby's scythe in his hands because she has shown him and let him feel the weight. Ruby's scythe is twice as light as his, but his scythe is twice as heavier. He has more momentum and impact, and his scythe is a bit thicker. Also, it has different mechanisms to transform into different types of weapons that he could use. Ruby, however, only has 3 different transformations for a scythe. The docile scythe, the sniper rifle, and the scythe itself. He has over 6 of them. He has both his normal scythe, his double-edged scythe, his split-apart double-handed scythe, his pickaxe version of his scythe, which combines both of the blades, his double pistol, and his arrows, or his bow scythe. He has 6 different transformations, while however Ruby has 3. But that means Ruby can move faster and her weapon is lighter. John moves slower and his weapon is heavier. But still, John can do more of an impact and has more variety in his attacks. However, Ruby has to put her strength into her impacts instead of using the weight of the weapon. And she has less strength into her weapon because it's not that heavier. So, John got variety and damage, Ruby got speed and accuracy because of long range weapon, sniper rifle, John mid-range weapon, double pistol, or mid to short long range, which is a bow and arrow. As John swings his axe, basically doing a spin with his scythe, transforming it into its pickaxe mode, using it left and right as he turns it back. Puts it back down because it's very heavy, and walks out, obviously, of the room that he's in. Pyrrha asking, "Where are you going, John?" "Going to look around the school. I mean, I didn't do much exploring while I was here, so it's good to familiarize yourself with the different areas." John walks around the school. As before he left, he didn't want to take his scythe with him, but he looks back at his weapon and says, what the hell, no one's gonna say that, no one will say it otherwise, I might need it later, as he hooks it onto his belt, as He continues walking. John ciphers in its docile state. John turns into the corner into a forest area and sees Ruby walking around as well. As Ruby sees John, she's like, "Hey, Arthur. You can call me John if you want." As John says, "Probably everybody already knows my name because of Osborne." As basically John looks quite quite slightly angry at Osborne for saying his real name and not the alias John gave Osborne. John is a bit famous John is a bit famous in Beacon. Why? Because all seven of his sisters are hunters. Well, four of them is going to a hunter academy, and at least the rest is hunters. And they're all pro hunters that basically inspired a lot of the hunters here. John wanted his name a secret, but nope, not gonna happen. As John says, it's fine. As Ruby is like, I'd rather call you by Arthur. So Arthur, what you doing outside here? As Ruby continues, Arthur says, just taking a walk, familiar, familiar, familiarizing myself with school. As Ruby says, hmm, that's a good idea. Can I walk with you? As John says, yeah, why not? Nothing much to do. John and Ruby start walking across the school, start exploring the different areas, seeing both the training rooms and the different basically areas where the teams can sleep, all the different dorms, all the different classrooms, walking around. As they are speaking, John gives Ruby a question. Ruby, when did you get your semblance? Uh, Funny thing is, I my aura was activated for quite a while now, and I only got my semblance a few weeks ago. Weeks, huh? That's funny. I also got my semblance a few weeks ago. Somebody activated it. But once my aura was finally activated, my semblance came straight after. As Ruby's like, oh, you're lucky then. Your semblance came when your aura was activated. I had to wait for mine. As Ruby looks down, as John says, hey, it's fine. Don't need to be like that. I mean, I'm sorry for asking. As John said, Ruby's like, it's not your fault. I mean, back at my school, a lot of people made fun of me for not having a semblance. But now I have one, so I will use it to the best of my ability. As John smiles, says, yeah, I know you will. So, your semblance is similar to mine. As Ruby's like, yeah, yours too. I mean, I didn't expect another person to have a speed semblance, but our semblances are quite similar. As Ruby gives a grin, one of Ace, as John looks at Ruby and gives also a grin of his own. You're on. As John says, where to? Hmm. Back to the dormitories. Back to my team's dormitories, as fast as you can. As John says, okay. John obviously knows where Team Ruby's basically dormitory is, because it's right next to theirs. John and Ruby are actually nearly outside of Beacon, as their dormitories, which is Ruby's dorm, is right on the other side of Beacon. So it's quite of a mile away. As they both get into running position. On your marks, Ruby says. John says get set. Ruby and John both yell, go! As their semblance activates and moves quick. John, thanks to his weapon, is moving slower than Ruby. But Ruby is not getting ahead of John. She's just slightly ahead of him. John sees that Ruby is extremely faster than him and has to pull out something that he didn't want to pull out at this moment. Using his aura to activate a specific dust that is permanently on his weapon, he makes his weapon completely light, using gravity crystals. As he's like, there we go, now I'm not gonna slow down now. John obviously pulls ahead of Ruby because he's not weighed down. Ruby says, hey, as she activates her scythe using her boosted scythe to blast her forward at extreme speeds. Ruby and John are racing down the hallways as papers and other things are getting flung and being flied over, or just being thrown over. The tables are even coming off of the ground and falling on the floor. Chairs are being basically ripped from where they are and lying on the floor. Papers are everywhere as they are creating a whirlwind of just wind and they are about to enter the sound barrier. Ruby and John are committed to defeat each other. Who has the better semblance? Both Ruby and John turn the corner and sees Glinda Goodwitch walking down, as they can't stop, as Glinda sees the two and says and sighs. As Glinda was about to say something until she realizes they're not stopping. As John and Ruby yells, Glinda, look out! As Glinda realizes gonna be in a bit of she's in trouble here. She either moves and gets trampled. Both John and Ruby's basically speed modes combine into one, making a black and red swirling circle, like a bullet moving at extreme speeds. As they both were about to hit Glinda Goodrich, they go right through her, as they continue moving forward. Both Ruby and John's semblance are boosting each other now, and they have just entered the sound barrier. They haven't broken it yet, they have just entered the sound barrier. As they make it to the dormitory, as Ruby and John with all their might use their semblance to stop. When that doesn't work, they use their weapons. John digging his weapon into the wall as Ruby digs her weapon into the floor, both gripping on tightly to each other and the weapon, both stopping at the same time. Boom! The sudden stop makes a big shockwave that resonates through the beacon. As Ozpin is busy writing down the rest of himself, a shockwave and a small tremor goes through the school. As Ozpin looks at the cameras, those two are going to be in trouble now. As Glinda Goodwitch walks up to them furious. Children, do not run in the halls. The next time you do this stunt again, I'm giving both of you full detentions for a week. Understand? As Ruby and John nod their heads. Ruby and JMP's Oz teams walk out and they are seeing the sight. John and Ruby have their scythes deep within the walls and floors, while John is sitting down and Ruby is sitting in John's lap. As well, you can say Glinda Goodwitch isn't happy, as she flicks her wrist, pulling both the scythes out of the walls, putting it side by side, and refixing everything while walking down the walls. Consider this your first warning, you two. Do this stunt again and you're gonna have detention. As John and Ruby both say sadly, yes, Glinda Goodwitch. Ruby and John looks at each other and give each other a grin. Pyrrha obviously just shakes her head and sighs, as Ren and Nora are just smiling at each other, looking at the two duo down. Yang obviously has a big grin on her face, Weiss is disgusted at her leader, and Blake just reads her book. This year is going to be an interesting year. So that's it for this day, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Tell me what you think about this what if video, and if you want to hear more, well, obviously, subscribe, notification bell. You'll get my videos when they come out. Well, when they eventually come out. Next video I'll be working on is probably, obviously, the Deku or Gregory fanfic, Gregory FNAF story with My Hero Academia. That's the next video that might be coming out. So don't forget to like, subscribe, notification bell, comment down below also what you think about this what if video, and I'll also see you guys later. Rogue What If out.